What is the deal, man? Happy Friday. Today's Friday. I recorded this yesterday. But nonetheless, I hope everybody's having a good Friday so far. Being blessed, being safe, being smart. Man, this is an impromptu video. It wasn't a scheduled video. I wanted to reach out to you guys and sort of shed some light on a subject that's been coming up several times here lately. And it's in reference to, of course, you saw by the title or by the thumbnail, in reference to the executive order that President Donald Trump signed in reference to payroll taxes. So it's a lot of misinformation out there. So I'm going to do two things in this video. One, I'm going to give you a look at what's really in the executive order itself. And second, how that could potentially affect our pockets. And I say us, individuals that are still working, if you are blessed enough to be able to still work, how that could potentially affect our pockets. So without further ado, man, let's jump into it. It's your boy C Nail. Oh, also, if you haven't already, go ahead and give me an early like, man. And go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It's absolutely free and it takes a couple of seconds. Also hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss any future content coming through. But with all that said, welcome. Let's get into it. So as mentioned, first I want to jump into what's in the executive order or the presidential memorandum. And we'll go ahead and just don't even waste any time. We'll jump into this. I am going to read just a couple of items or excerpts directly from the presidential memorandum verbatim so we can all see that, and I'll put that up. So this first excerpt is under section 2, and it is deferring certain payroll tax obligations is the title of section 2. We're going to jump down to A. The first part of that just identifies the tax codes and the effective dates. And of course, for the effective dates of this particular executive order or presidential memorandum, it was effective from 1 September 2020, so a couple of days ago, through the end of this year, which is December 31st, 2020. So we'll jump down to A, and I'm going to go ahead and read this for you. The deferral shall be made available with respect to any employee with the amount whose wages or compensation as applicable payable during any bi-weekly pay period, generally less than $4,000 calculated on a pre-tax basis, or the equivalent amount with respect to the other pay periods. Will also progress, and it goes to say in B, amounts deferred pursuant to the implementation of this memorandum shall be deferred without any penalties, interest, additional amount, or addition to the tax. So all that's saying is essentially, translation, as long as you make roughly under $96,000 a year, you have the potential to take advantage of this tax break via your employer. In addition to that, they are protecting us if it is the case and we are able to take advantage of this tax break or this tax deferment, so that there are no late fees, no penalties, etc. So down in section 4, and I'll put that up as well, section is titled Tax Forgiveness. The Secretary of the Treasury shall explore avenues, including legislation, to eliminate the obligation to pay the taxes deferred pursuant to the implementation of this memorandum. So translation for that, and of course this was an executive order or a presidential memorandum that was signed, and it was actually issued on the 8th of August of this year. Again, the effective dates for this memorandum, presidential memorandum, is 1 September 2020 through December 31st, 2020. So a quick translation of all that. And I want you guys to look at this not through the lens of a particular party, whatever party you represent or you lean towards, Democratic, Republican, Independent, we have to be able to step back and look at things objectively. And you know my channel, I'm all about money, saving money, and us sharing that knowledge to be better stewards of our money. Well, this has the potential to affect our pockets, or it may not, and then I'll expand on that as well. So, but what that's saying is the tax obligation, or the tax obligation that we typically pay, a portion of that is being deferred. So that means we're going to be able to, if the employer decides to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this for my employees, our checks from effective 1 September through the end of this year will be 6.2% higher. And that 6.2% tax burden that's being deferred comes from Social Security and Medicare, which are two items that come out of our paychecks when we pay taxes overall. Federal taxes, of course, you have your Medicare and then the Social Security. So we'll be able to retain 6.2%. So again, as long as you're under that $96,000 a year threshold, you can calculate that and see what that's going to look like for you. So for example, if you're normally taxed at a 20% tax rate, instead of being taxed at the 20% tax rate, through the end of this year, you will be taxed at, 13.8%. So, and you can do the math and see what that may work out to be for you. Maybe $100, $150 a check, or $75 extra per check. Again, in a lot of the conversations that I've had about this, that's the stress. And this is a good thing to help people get money right now. But again, we go back to it. This is deferring payroll taxes. That certain obligations is how they phrase it. So it's that 6.2% that they're saving for you. The issue with this is most employers in the private sector are not going to do this, because again, most people typically look at the here and now, don't look at the long term. And as an employer, or any level of management, you have to forecast not just the short term, but the long term. So deferment doesn't mean, again, you would be protected from any late fees, any penalties, and things of that nature. But again, it's good through the end of this year. So come 1 January 2021, those taxes are still owed. Remember, they were just deferred. They weren't forgiven. So you heard the verbiage in that last section that I read. They'll be looking for ways to forgive that tax burden that's owed, because we were able to keep that 6.2% through the end of this year. The issue with that is President Donald Trump is looking to make it permanent, or find a way to forgive that burden that has accumulated that we owe, because if your employer exercises this, you're not paying that portion of taxes through the end of the year. So as you not pay it, that amount builds up and builds up and builds up, and whatever that comes out to you for you, based on what you get paid at the end of the year, that's going to be the amount that you owe, right? So he's looking to say, okay, hey, we'll make it permanent if I'm reelected. So this particular executive order goes through the end of this year. Well, we know that the election is 3 November. There's no guarantee that he's going to be back in office. So for me and you, I don't care what party it is, never pin our hopes on government for its amazing ability to manage money, but more importantly too, hoping that I'm going to take an action that I know is already affecting me. If I'm an employer, I'm going to start, allowing my employees to keep that 6.2% right now, hoping that we don't have to pay it back later. As it sits right now, that tax burden of 6.2%, again, those will be pulled from Social Security and from Medicare, are just deferred. They're going to be owed. So again, come the first of the new year, we're going to start paying that back. So that same amount, and I had somebody I talked to say, well, it's only for me, it'd only be like $200 or $250 a month. I said, well, if it's only $200, $250 a month, why are you fussing about your employer not doing it? Well, because that puts money in our pockets now. Well, and I understand that, but the catch about that is come the first of next year, those taxes are still owed, so you're going to have to start paying that back. So in that same scenario, if you're taxed at 20% tax rate through the end of this year, if your employer decides to enact that, you only be taxed at 13.8%, which will allow for that extra money in your paycheck through the end of this year. But when it's time to pay it back, instead of you being taxed at your normal tax rate of 20%, you're now going to be taxed at a tax rate of 26.2% because you owe that 6.2% that they let you keep. Essentially the fourth quarter of 2020. So now that same $200 or $250 that you said is not a lot of money, well, now your check is going to be short that same amount because guess what? It's a deferral. It's not a forgiveness. So they're still owed. So that's why, in my opinion, most employers aren't going to do that. Because thinking of the long term, how does that really help people? We don't know what the state of the U.S. economy will be come the first of the year, right? What we do know is that it's hurting now. What we do know is that, yes, getting money into the hands of the people is always a very good thing because 80% of our GDP is you and I getting our check and spending money and putting that money back into the economy. So it's always a good thing. But in my humble opinion, and not everybody's going to think the same, and let me know what your opinion is down in the comments. And also, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button, man, and subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss any more content, right? In my humble opinion, though, it's not a wise move for businesses to do. I know a lot of people are asking about it. Even at work, there's a lot of people, a lot of chatter about it. It's not wise because guess what? You're still going to owe those taxes. So we're going to give you a couple extra $100 if it amounts to a couple of extra $100 in your paychecks for the month now, just for you to have to turn right back around and pay it back. So now if things are tight, right? If things are tight and you really need that extra money to get by, you're feeding your kids, you're paying your rent, etc., trying to save and do certain things, well, come first of the year and when you have to pay that back, because again, it's deferred, not forgiven. Now you're going to be short that same amount. So you take your normal check of what you would get paid prior to this executive order and your company enacting this, whatever your normal paycheck was, subtract that 6.2%. Because you're not just going to be getting taxed at your normal rate in that scenario we had earlier of 20%. Now it's 26.2% because your employer said, hey, we'll front you this now, but we're not the federal government and they're still saying it's due. So we got to take it from you. We don't have a choice. And for most companies, I mean, we've all been watching the news, especially small businesses, are not in a position to be able to pay that or cover that bill for their employees, right? And the government knows this. So that's why, in my humble opinion, this executive order really did nothing. And it gets people to look at the short term and not the long term past the end of this year. First of all, there's no guarantee that he's going to be, President Donald Trump will get reelected. Second, there's no guarantee of the continuance of this. And he's been talking about tax cuts and there's a lot of people that oppose that in all parties to include the Republican Party, that a lot of folks have spoken out about if we're taking these funds, because when we pay those taxes, they go to Medicare and Social Security. Those two are already underfunded as it is. So they've been saying, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that because that'll cause tremendous damage to those two programs, right? But there's no guarantee of anything. But the only guarantee in this is going to be that the government's made it clear it's still owed. We're just going to defer it and not charge you late fees or a penalty, but you still owe us. So I did want to add that I have spoken to a couple of my good friends that are federal government employees, GS employees, and it looks like the government is forcing them to exercise this option. So, I'll let you form your own opinion about that and how you feel about that, but just wanted to throw that out there. So I'll verify, but that's what I've heard. So it's almost like laugh now, cry later. And from a business standpoint, I don't think that's a wise move to do that to your employees because one, we don't know what is going to be happening at the first of the new year. We don't. But what we do know is folks are going to need their money. So to enjoy that now, but then have to pay it right back later, I don't think good leadership will be putting their people in position to succeed. Now, what actually needs to happen is they come together, because they've been chilling for a while, and actually pass some meaningful legislation. And now it's being deferred. So you owe us, but you don't have to pay us now. You can pay us down the road, but we don't need that. So long story short, just wanted to make sure you guys had the objective information. Again, man, if you hear something or see something on the news or whatever your outlet is that you receive your information from in terms of the news, always go do your own due diligence. Look into it to make sure you're fully understanding what it is that's going on and not just getting filtered information from a particular source or news outlet. So a quick summation, with this particular executive order, I don't feel that a lot of private companies are going to enact this and use this just because it's a deferral. So those taxes are still owed. And in my humble opinion, you're just building up a larger tax obligation for folks who already need their money. And it's nice to front them that money, but then to turn around and have to smack them with, oh, we need that back. And my humble opinion is not a good solution. Not when there are other legitimate solutions that won't cause people to slowly accrue debt or have to have a smaller check after it all. So let me know what you guys think, man. Hit me up down in the comments, but again, always do your research. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me if you made it this far in the video. Appreciate it, man. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like the video, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content. Always, guys, be smart during this crazy times. Be safe, bless others. I hope you are going into this long weekend. Enjoy, man. Relax, have a good time. Again, be smart. Be smart. Invest wisely. Until next time, your people, I'm out, man.